3. Stop, collaborate, and listen. Ozobots are a great way to bring coding into your K through 5 classroom.
I'm super excited to incorporate them into a middle school math classroom.
And I'm excited for the cross-curricular aspect of it with these guys.
And are you really excited about Ozobot Classroom?
Yes!
So today here at ISTE we found out that in the fall Ozobot's going to be launching Ozobot Classroom, which in our district is something we're super excited for. It's going to integrate with Google, so we look forward to that. Previously though, a lot of things that we wanted our teachers to do as far as tracking student progress, we would use code.org with Ozobot. So now that Ozobot's rolling something out like this, it gives our teachers the opportunity to track the students' progress while using Ozobots, all within one platform that syncs with Google Classroom as well. So we're really looking forward to this coming out this fall.
Okay, so what I'm most excited about Ozobot Classroom is the ability to allow our students to guide themselves through the activities. We can watch their progress. We can step in and offer assistance when it's needed. It's just going to give us a lot of power as teachers to be able to help our students in a lot of different ways.
Hey everyone, I'm Tara and I'm coming to you live from the ISTE conference in Philadelphia. You may have been tuning into our previous videos and saw some interviews that we've been doing with certified educators, but this is the moment you've all been waiting for, the unveiling of Ozobot Classroom. So here at our Ozobot Dome, we've been talking to educators and going through our mini bot camp experience. We have been introducing them to the 2 different ways to code, which is our color codes and Ozoblockly, and we've been going through 2 quick activities to show educators how they're able to take these color codes and Ozoblockly and introduce them into their classroom with their students. Now, we've also taken those 2 activities and showed you how you can use Ozobot Classroom. So Ozobot Classroom allows you to get 3 key benefits: student-teacher communication, a recommendation engine, and real-time insights into connected and screen-free coursework. So here's a little sneak peek of what Ozobot Classroom looks like. You'll see there's a comprehensive overview of each one of the students in your class. You can click on a student and you can see which lessons they've already completed, which are pending, and you can assign new lessons to the students. You can also take a deeper dive into each student and see their individual achievements and engagements, and from there define personalized learning needs. So if a student is falling behind in a particular subject or a lesson, you're able to monitor that and then really help that student catch up with the rest of the class. So to give you a little more idea of how Ozobot Classroom works, I'm going to take you over to one of our engineers that's been working on Ozobot Classroom. Her name's Teresa, and she is back here. Hey Teresa, how are you doing?
Good, Tara. How are you?
Good. So you've been talking to all the educators at the conference and kind of going through Ozobot Classroom with them. Can you give us an example of how teachers can get real-time insights from Evo?
Yeah, for sure. We'll do a really quick activity right now. So we'll get our Evo ready. And we're going to start training. So this is an example from, This is an example from the teacher training that's in our classroom right now. So when you get started, you'll do the same training. So we'll turn on Evo, and then we'll connect. And then we're going to connect our Ozobot Evo to the Chrome browser, and now we can get data back and forth. And this is a challenge that says that Evo should walk on a black line and see the different color codes. And I just have a quick sample right here. So as soon as Evo sees those color codes, this next button will be enabled. So we'll set Evo on this line. And as soon as it saw that fast code, then this button was enabled. So now we're allowed to move on. And then you can imagine how when students are doing a lesson or you're doing an activity, that's how everyone will progress through each step. All right, and then about Ozoblockly. So this will open up the editor, which you've already seen. But when you're logged into Classroom and you're connected to your bot, you'll be able to send programs to Evo and then you'll be able to see how students are doing in their progress throughout their activity. So that is a very super quick activity where Evo saw one color code while we were talking, and then we looked at Ozoblockly for 17 seconds.
Now, we have been talking to a lot of educators at the conference. There's been a line around the booth the entire time. What's some feedback that you've heard about Ozobot Classroom?
People have been super excited. And actually the most common reaction has been like silence and then wow, like I really need this. This is going to help so much. And that's been really cool to hear.
I'm really excited for Ozobot Classroom to come out. I know you are, and we hope that you are too. So if you've missed any of the interviews that we've been doing with the certified educators earlier in the conference, you can go ahead and check those out right now.
Hi, I'm Jenna with Ozobot. Thanks for joining us today. This is Stephanie. And Stephanie, can you tell us what subjects and grades you teach?
Awesome. So I teach computer science to 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade gifted and talented students.
Great. How long have you been using Ozobot in your classroom?
This is going into my 4th year of using Ozobot in my classroom.
Nice. And can you tell us what your favorite thing is about using Ozobot?
I love that they are so hands-on. My students are always super engaged when I use Ozobot in my lessons. I also like that I can differentiate with them. So I can use the color code with my students that still need that. And then I can also use Ozo Blockly for my students that are ready for that. So I like that I can differentiate with them. And I just love that they're so engaging.
Nice. Well, I see that you brought some lesson plans with you today. Would you mind sharing some of those?
I did. So I'm going to be sharing about an engineering lesson that I do with my students. So I call it Engineering Ozobot Mazes. And it is a lesson that involves engineering, and then it involves computer science and math. So it involves a lot of core subject areas. The first thing I do with my students is I give them an Ozobot planning sheet, and I give them a 10 by 10 poster square. So on the planning sheet, they're able to kind of sketch out where they want their materials to go on their maze. And some of our favorite materials that we use are cardboard strips, straws, water bottles. They like to cut those up and kind of make tunnels for the Ozobot to go through. And after they plan out their maze, they're able to start building it. So it really goes through the design thinking where they have to come up with a plan first to sketch it out and then to actually engineer and make it. So they make their mazes. And I love that because they're able to really be super creative. So I've had some different themed ones. So they've done, I had a student do like a firehouse one. I've had a student do like a haunted house type theme. And then we get on to the programming side of it. And so the one thing that I really like is that the kids can incorporate the markers with Ozo Blockly. So there's a part where you can program it to go along the black line, and then my kids will then program it by measuring in millimeters to see what the distance is that it needs to travel, and of course they also use angles to see how it needs to turn. I also love this lesson because it really allows my kids to be able to go back and debug. So when there's a problem with their code, with their program, they're able to kind of go back through their code and try to see where their error was, where their mistake was. So it's a really great way for them to kind of debug through their code. So I really like that as well. And then I also have a rubric that I've created that is a really great way for you to kind of assess your students to make sure that they were able to get to those outcomes that you wanted. So the outcomes of being able to program it successfully, to be able to go through that engineering design process. So I love that the rubric is there to kind of, so that you can assess your students and make sure that they were successful. So
awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about how your students responded to these?
This is actually one of their favorite activities in my classroom. They're always really excited when I pull out all the supplies to get started for this lesson and this activity. I've also had really good feedback from parents saying that they loved that their child was able to be creative and also kind of show that persistence where they've had to, kind of debug and go back and look at their program. So it really builds that persistence as well. So it's a very popular lesson.
Awesome. And any advice out there for the teachers?
Yes, I would say to definitely take advantage and dive into the Ozobot lesson library. There are some really great lessons in there, and I love that you can take a lesson that's in there and kind of modify it to your classroom's unique needs. So one thing that I did recently is I did a code camp last week for middle school girls, and so I pulled out the Ozobot lesson that uses Pokemon Go, but since I did girls, I changed it to where it was emoji themed, and so they had to collect the emojis in order by programming the Ozobot through Ozoblockly to go in a specific order. And so I love that you can take the lessons and modify them to your specific classroom needs. So definitely take advantage and use the lesson library.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie, for joining us today, and everybody out there on Facebook Live, thanks for joining us. Bye.
Howdy, my name is Anthony. We're here at ISTE, and I have Gina here. She's a Ozobot certified educator. Can you tell us what grade levels and what subject you teach?
Sure. So I teach 10th grade English at Montour High School. It's about 15 minutes outside of Pittsburgh.
Very cool. And how long have you been teaching Ozobot?
I've been using these in my English classroom for 3 years.
3 years also. And what's your favorite thing you've done with Ozobot so far?
My favorite part about these Ozobots are the diversity that it gives me in my classroom. It allows me to use many different things, many different techniques. I can bring STEAM into the language arts classroom.
Awesome.
And I can model it and make it work for different students in my classroom.
Very cool. And then I see you brought your laptop here. Could you tell me a little bit more about your lesson? I believe it's on the lesson library, is that correct?
Sure, yeah, it is. So
Awesome.
I have, it's a 10th grade English literature classroom, and what I do, I have them start with a creative piece. So they choose between either a murder mystery or a fairy tale. This year the students chose to do a murder mystery.
Overwhelmingly, it looks like.
Yes, yeah. That was 76% wanted the murder mystery. And that's what they're going to use to create their storyboard and all of the writing pieces that will filter into this.
Awesome.
So just to get them started, I have them do some brainstorming. I give them the robots and the markers and the coding, and I kind of let them explore. So I don't tell them how the Ozobots work. That's part of the problem solving that's worked into the overall lesson. So they have to figure out how they work first, and then they can go ahead and start building their stories. So once they get through the critical thinking and the problem solving of the actual mechanics of the Ozobot and how it works, then they can start with their project. So once they get to the piece where they are ready to write, they're going to come up with their creative story. That creative story has to hit all of the elements of literature that we cover. So it has to have a sound plot, there has to be a protagonist, antagonist, conflict, cause and effect, some resolution in there. And that piece of fiction is what then they use to create their storyboard.
Awesome. And then how big are the groups that you're doing this
So
with?
they work in groups of 4,
Groups of 4.
and they're in the same team throughout the whole project. So this project
Awesome.
takes about 3.5 weeks to do start to finish. Once they have their story done, they can start creating their storyboard, and that's what some of these are here. You'll see they kind of had their rough draft and then their sketch. Their storyboard has to match the setting of their story. So wherever they describe their story to take place, their board has to match that.